One of the biggest mysteries in all of Jujutsu Kaisen pertains to its main character, and I believe that the answer to said mystery will be instrumental in not only ending the terror of Sukuna, but also bringing back the character that has seemingly been lost forever, that being one Megumi Fushiguro. That's right, folks. Not only am I a firm advocate of the Gojo comeback agenda, I also think that it is very likely that Megumi will be brought back into the fold, and in a very impactful way, mind you. Because even though Megumi has become a bit of a meme in the JJK community and most people feel like he's nothing but wasted potential and that's all he ever was and will be because he's quote-unquote dead, I, on the other hand, see that potential and choose to believe in something else entirely. Really quickly though, before I continue, I want to say, make sure to like this video if you enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen videos from me. It helps the channel and said videos out more than you could ever imagine, and it also lets me know that you guys actually want to see a whole lot more. Plus, every like makes Geje think twice before killing off a character, so keep that in mind. But back to the topic at hand. As I was about to say, I don't think that Megumi is a character that Geje has just decided to kill off and move on, because when reflecting on the story and Megumi's moments specifically, I see a lot of groundwork being laid for a future that will almost certainly happen. And just to name a few examples, let's start with his domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden. So far, we've seen this domain in action 3 times, and with each subsequent showing, it's grown more and more, but it's never fully become a complete domain. Now, I initially thought that once we saw Sukuna take over Megumi's body, we would finally see this domain completed because of how knowledgeable and powerful Sukuna is, and since he had access to the Ten Shadows technique. But that wasn't the case. Anytime Sukuna used domain expansion, it was always Malevolent Shrine, which indicates to me that we will see Chimera Shadow Garden again, because it just doesn't make any sense for Geje to explicitly state that Megumi's domain in its first showing is incomplete, then show it get progressively more developed to a point where we see a spine forming in the domain, only to kill off the character without ever showing the completed domain. Now, another example has to do with the Ten Shadows technique and what was stated about that power. Gojo himself said that Megumi, because of the Ten Shadows technique, would be able to become just as powerful as he is, and we saw a bit of that in Sukuna's fight with Gojo. Sukuna was able to put on a showcase of Ten Shadows that, from a technical perspective, made almost everything we've seen so far from Megumi look like somebody riding a bike with training wheels on the front and back. However, despite how good Sukuna was at using the Ten Shadows, he would still pale in comparison to Megumi if Megumi had the same understanding of cursed technique and cursed energy, the positives and the negatives. Because the way that Megumi operates, once he truly decides to go all out and he takes Gojo's words to heart and mind, not just about Ten Shadows being a rival technique to Limitless, but the other thing that he said about sorcery being a one-man sport, essentially. Once he does that, he is a force of nature. And we saw that happen in this fight with the special grade and Reje, I think that's how you say his name. The only thing he lacks is experience, and while that's definitely unfortunate for Megumi, it will also end up being very unfortunate for Sukuna. Taking over Megumi's body will end up being one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made. And the reason I say this is because initially when Sukuna took over, Megumi's body and soul were able to ever so slightly resist, not only from a physical side, but also from a CE side. That's the reason why Yuji didn't get turned into minced meat when he got hit with Cleave. Now, Sukuna was eventually able to take the necessary steps to stop Megumi's interference altogether. However, even though interference was off the table, his body and soul still retained the information of how Sukuna was able to use Ten Shadows. So if and when he gets his body back, Megumi will not only have a greater understanding of his technique, thanks to the experience his body gained, he will also be able to use a complete domain on top of that. Now, all of this theory crafting is pretty great if I do say so myself, but in the end I feel it would kinda be all for naught if I didn't explain how I think he's actually coming back. So let me do exactly that. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, one of the greatest mysteries within this series is the key to saving Megami, and the mystery just so happens to deal with another domain expansion, Itadori Yuji's domain expansion. Ever since we learned about this technique, people have been waiting for the day when Yuji finally learns and unleashes it. And now, in the final arc of the series, I believe we are right at the cusp of seeing that happen. And the result of using that technique will save Megami, because as most people should know, domain expansion is the most supreme technique in the Jujutsu verse. Other than, you know, plot armor from Geje, but it is achieved by expanding one's innate domain with cursed energy. While using a barrier to construct inside a separate space, the caster then imbues their curse technique with the barrier to complete the expansion, allowing them to employ their ability throughout the domain. Now, if we are dealing with the Itadori of Shibuya or even earlier Culling games, his domain probably would have been something like getting hit by 100 delayed fists or one big one. I don't know, something like that. However, those Yujis are completely different to the one that is currently fighting Sukuna. I mean, just look at his disgusting arms. But in addition to that, in chapter 244, we saw Yuji land a blow on Sukuna that seemingly affected him in a way nothing ever had before. And while that may be something new to him, it's most certainly not something I haven't seen before. Because in the anime, this exact same thing occurred, and it happened in the final battle with Mahito. In that fight, we saw Mahito transform and land a hit on Yuji that caused a similar effect to the one that happened on Sukuna. Now, what I think this is all leading towards is Yuji having a similar power to what Mahito had. He'll be able to attack the soul of Sukuna, and when Yuji unleashes his domain, one of two things will take place. Either Yuji will be able to see both souls and interact with both of them inside the domain, essentially leading to a 2v1 against Sukuna, or when the domain is activated, a scene will take place that'll be very similar to every time Mahito used his domain when Yuji was around. Except in this scenario, Yuji would come face to face with Megami and rescue him that way. Somehow. Either way, I believe that there will be a battle between all three of these characters. And if that doesn't happen, then maybe Yuji can use that technique that he used on Kusakabe, where they switched bodies, and he'll switch bodies with Megami. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is the entire theory I have for you today, and I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section how y'all are feeling about this one. Do you think Geje will actually bring back Megami? Will Yuji use domain expansion, like at all? Or will everything end in utter disaster and Sukuna is just gonna kill everyone and then he's the winner of JJK? Like I said, let me know what you guys are thinking, and make sure you subscribe and like the video too, hit that notification bell, all that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody!